Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Early, and I am the President and CEO of the JPS Health Network. I can't tell you how much I don't want to have this press conference. I've been the CEO here for 11 years, and I've never had a worse day than on January 20th when I had to deal with an employee, a colleague of mine, who had to come in for something that she never expected. This woman came to work and she didn't leave work. She's been in our ICU since January 20th. There are 6,700 people that work here, and I try my best to give them a high five or hug them every day I can. And to go through this is difficult. These elevators do a whole lot more than just take people. They take medical supplies, they take laundry, they take food, they take patients, and they take our employees. And they do it 24/7. When these elevators go down or they have problems, it interrupts everything we do. We are a level 1 trauma center. Whether you're an administrator like me with no health care in my bloodline, I'm not an MD, not a DO. We have 2,300 nurses here. We have incredible people. But as a level 1 trauma center, all of our goals, whether you clean the halls or whether you're an administrator, is to keep people alive. So the heartache and the pain of one of your own being in that situation is devastating. The one thing we're not is elevator experts. We do trauma care. We do trauma care to cancer care to clinic care. We are not elevator experts. You hire elevator experts. And we thought we had elevator experts. We've got a contract that clearly spells out what elevator companies are supposed to do to help with the safety and security of everybody that works here. So it's been really devastating. I'm sorry that there's a little bit of frustration from the beginning that we couldn't tell you everything, but we take great pride in protecting the privacy of our patient. And I know that's frustrating for y'all, but that's what we're going to do. I've asked Mr. Frank Branson to come here today. Mr. Branson is a kind man, and he's a man trying to figure out what he can do to help that family. So I'm going to ask Mr. Branson at this time to make a few comments and tell you about his perspective on this situation.
Thank you, Mr. Early. I represent Karen Stratford, Nurse Stratford, who has had obviously the worst day of her life on January 20th of this year. She's suffered severe hypoxic brain damage. She's had seizures. She's had terrible internal injuries and has had multiple surgeries, but she survived. And I have never seen in the years I've been practicing law a more caring employer than Nurse Stratford has. JPS has gone well above and beyond in taking care of what they refer to as a family member and treat as a family member. On the other hand, the elevator company that was paid to maintain these elevators safely, and I think you'll will get a copy of their contract, and in the contract they set a really high level of care for themselves, which it doesn't appear to me they've met in many circumstances. In fact, I would go so far as to say if Thiessen and Crump Elevator were trying to build a house, instead of maintaining elevators safely, they would have put the basement on the 2nd floor. Thank you.
You're welcome. What we'd like to do at this point is, I know many of you might have some questions. We're both happy to take any questions that y'all have. Try to do it there's a lot of y'all, so we'll try to do it in an orderly fashion the best we can. So what questions can we start out with here? Yes, ma'am?
I know the elevator company's been named in 18 cases in Tarrant County since 2003. Were you guys aware of this before this incident happened, and moving forward, are you guys, creating a lawsuit against them, et cetera?
Good question. I will tell you that understanding the elevator industry has been something that I've become aware of in the last couple of weeks. There's a limited amount of people that do elevator construction or repairs. This company, TK Elevators, represents themselves on their website and with others as being the ones in top quality, top standards, top performance. I'm not sure what they do for others, but my confidence is really low as to what they do here. So the second part of your question as to what we plan to do, I have an obligation to 6,700 people that work here, and I have an obligation to the taxpayers of Tarrant County to get the best care and service for any vendor that we use. They're not our partner, they're a vendor. And in that vendor, I have an obligation to make sure that they do what they need to be doing. So my first responsibility is to make sure they do that. As far as what happens next with lawsuits or anything else, we'll look at every possibility. I've got a board to deal with, and I will deal with my board, and I get direction from that board. But I will tell you that we will do everything we can to secure the safety of the people that work here and come here. Yes, sir?
Frank, did you name your client, or can you name your client? And tell us
I
what
did.
was- what
Yes.
was the name?
Karen Stratford.
Karen Stratford. And can you tell us a little bit about her? And also, do you plan a lawsuit on her behalf?
Yes, we're investigating it now to make sure we've got the right parties. She has 2 adult children. She's in her mid-50s and was preparing to go back and get a master's in nursing when this unfortunate occurrence took her out of that, took that ability away from her.
Other questions y'all
Sir,
have?
can you spell her name, please?
Stradford, I believe. It may be a T. Kern, is it a T or a D?
Stratford. First name is Karen, Carren.
And how long had she worked here?
She'd been here for about 2.5 years. And she was, all of our folks know each other really, really well, but she in particular was somebody pretty special to the team. She had done a lot of mission trips, things like that, and that's kind of the people that come here at JPS. We hire people, we always try to hire people with 2 great skill sets, the skill set to do their job and the heart to do it. And she was an employee that exhibited that on every day.
I know you've been reluctant to discuss some of the specifics, but can you share a little bit about what happened with the elevator that day? What went wrong? Was she getting on? Was she getting off? Was she in it at the time? What the circumstances were?
From what I know, it appears that, and again, it's from briefings that I have, I got to the accident about 35 minutes after it happened, and that's just the time it took me to drive in here. It appears that she was trying to get on the elevator. It appears that the elevator did not stop, and there was a slight rise in that elevator. She put her right foot in that elevator, and as she did, that elevator continued to go up. It knocked her off balance and then caused her to have that elevator continue to rise, and she'd be crushed in the corner of that elevator.
Sir,
I
what
can't think
steps-
of anything more horrific.
What steps have you taken since that incident to make sure that these elevators are safe as people are using them?
First thing I said is, why don't y'all read your contract, and why don't you start doing what you're contracted to do? Second thing that we've done is tried to make sure that everything that goes on around here, we're creating the safety. And I've got an expert to do that, and TK is the elevator company to do that. But I can't tell you how difficult it is when I walk into work and there's 6 elevators that are inoperable after they've been reviewed for their safety. And there's 6 elevators that are inoperable when I walk in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I leave at 7 o'clock at night, and now I have 8 elevators that are inoperable. It's hard to create confidence amongst your team. That goes back to your question, and that is, what do we do in the future? What do we do in the future is I try to do whatever I can to find the best company to come in here and create safety and create the responsibility that they should have according to their contract.
So have you had another company come in?
Not at this point. It's a very difficult world, and we're working on that very thing right now.
Well, why is that? 'Cause people use this hospital. Quite frankly, I was nervous riding the elevator after the investigation we ran
Sure.
at CBS 11, 51
Mhm.
entrapments in the last 12 months.
Mhm.
What can you say to people who use these elevators? Your employees have no choice but to use them. What can you say to them to make them know that they are safe when they're riding these elevators?
Well, the first thing I would say is this company represents itself as an expert. Use its expert ability to make these elevators run right. We don't run elevators. We are not elevator experts. They are, and they are to an entire industry. We'll also tell you that the elevator industry is a small industry. Not a whole lot of people that you can go out and just put bids out and say, anybody come on in and run your elevators. So we got to work with what we've got at this point, and we want to make sure that we're creating the safety that our patients, our family members here, and guests and taxpayers deserve. And we'll keep working on that.
So what you're saying is, are you looking for a new elevator contractor to maintain the elevators at this point?
I'm going to look at anything I possibly can do to make sure that these elevators are safe.
Just to be clear, because I'm not sure that you answered my question, what steps, can you give us specifics? Have these elevators been inspected? Are some out of service if they're not safe? What specifics can you give us about the current safety of the elevators?
Sure, no, I appreciate it. I think a lot of the documents that you all have, that certainly we've given you all the documents that we have, which brings up an interesting point. I read an article, it was I guess the story in the Star-Telegram last night, and I found it interesting to find out that I guess the elevator company had said that we had not given them certain information. What's interesting about that is all the elevator reports, all the maintenance documents are housed at TK. They're housed with them. In fact, the reason that some of you got that information slightly later is we had to get it from them. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that those elevators are safe. And I'm going to work through TK to do that. And I'm going to say, you specifically have an obligation according to this contract, now meet it. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm going to work really hard to do. If they get to the point where they can't, I got to look at other alternatives, speaking to your point and yours.
The nature of Karen Stratford's injuries, would you describe her injuries as being permanent? Is she expected to make a full recovery? What can you tell me about that?
I don't know the answer to that because I'm not an MD or DO, so I really can't. But where we lie is, again, being a level 1 trauma center, all I can tell you is what I feel for this place. I was a head injury patient here at JPS. 4 years ago, I had a fractured skull and a brain bleed. I know what this place can do, and I'm lucky enough to stand in front of you today because of what this place did to me, and I hope to do the same for Karen, and I hope she'll be in the situation I'm in one day. But she's got a tough struggle. Thank you all very much.
Sir, what
We appreciate it.
responsibility I know you're saying you're not an expert on elevators. You hired an expert. Sounds like you're saying they're not meeting their obligations. But what obligations do you have as the person in charge of JPS if someone's not doing what they're supposed to be doing to either shut down elevators or tell people don't use them because they're not safe?
Well, I
What's
think
your obligation as JPS?
Sure. Our obligation is to make sure through the experts we use that this is as safe as possible. Very much like when you get on an airplane. You get on an airplane and you're going to make sure, not as a passenger, that that plane runs safely, but everybody else did their job. That's my responsibility right now, is to make sure everybody does their job. And they have a contractual obligation to do that, and I will make sure everything I can that they do that contractual obligation, and if they don't, I'll do my best to find somebody that can. Yes, last question.
How many elevators are out as of this moment, and how would you characterize the response of the elevator company overall?
3 elevators are out at the present time. The response, I would characterize it as not the response you would ever want to see. I think they were slightly unresponsive. I did not like their approach. I didn't like the fact that I didn't even receive a phone call for the first 8 days of this accident from TK. I don't think that's a good approach. And then I think there's better ways to handle this. And it's really difficult creating confidence amongst your employees when elevators continue to go down after I've been told they've been inspected. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.